Hello everybody and welcome to One Piece 1003 chapter review on this Super Bowl Sunday. We got Poison Pink in the desert this time around, getting a flower from a very shy scorpion. She also has like a Starbucks set up on the side there, which I think is pretty fitting because I feel like if Rachel were a real person, she would be at Starbucks all the time. We really don't know what happened to the Vinsmokes post Whole Cake Island, so at least we get her in this way. And this is how you know that Luffy is in fact Oda's favorite character. Like when you have this scenario happen with Reiju almost automatically, I don't think you need more proof than that, you know? It's like, who's Oda's favorite character? Well, there you go. So Luffy is Oda's #1 boy, directly followed by Zoro, as we will see once again in this chapter. We open up with a double page spread of last week's Kong Gatling, which is obviously dealing some damage. You can just tell from like Big Mom's expression. Like she's in awe of Luffy being able to do this to Kaido. And so Luffy essentially buries Kaido's head in the ground. We zoom out of the skull and we see that the range of the impact of Luffy's attack on Kaido is even bigger than the size of the horn that was cut, right? It's kind of a rule that Oda has where whenever he gives Zoro some shine, he always ends up giving Luffy even more of a shine later. That's just what he does. That's his formula. And it's kind of funny too in a way because in the previous chapter we learned that Zoro hadn't fully mastered Enma yet, and in this chapter we see that Luffy still has a time limit for his Gear 4th. At first I thought it was really strange that Luffy had been drained like this after using Gear 4th, because in chapter 975 there's a scene where he goes Gear 4th and destroys one of the Beast pirate ships, and then after he uses Gear 4th, he goes back to base and he's completely fine. Not drained at all. He also uses Gear 4th in chapter 990 when he teams up with Drake to take out two of the numbers, and then after that, he goes back to base again, and he's totally fine. But I guess it's because this time he's fighting Kaido using Rio that the timeout had to kick in. And that's an opportunity for growth right there, because imagine if he were fighting Kaido by himself, right? Zoro had to pull a Sanji and get him out of there. Now, I actually had to go back and check, but this was actually foreshadowed back in Udon. There's a scene where he uses King Kong gun on the iron block that he's practicing on, and he destroys it, essentially. But then he turns back to Hyogoro, and he's like, that wasn't good. And then Hyogoro says, yeah, you're still straining your body way too much. And then later on in the anime, Chopper shows up, and he's like, Luffy, we need to go. And then Luffy says, I'm sorry, could you still give me a little bit more time? And then Luffy makes the promise that he will be able to master it in time. Recently, I've been talking about how Luffy has to be able to work on his speed to be able to match Kaido's speed, especially now, after Hybrid Form. But now I think this chapter also makes it obvious that he also needs to work on building up his stamina, his endurance. So in addition to the speed boost that we will be getting for Luffy from either Gear 5th or Awakening, there also needs to be something about those two modes that allows Luffy to manage and replenish his haki a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. Because the time limit and the 10-minute timeout is just such a hindrance for him combat-wise, especially for future 1v1s. This chapter kind of helped me realize something cool about Kid's punk rotten ability, which is that essentially within that suit of armor, Kid is kind of like Buggy in a way, because we've seen the metal armor get sliced and diced, and yet it still kind of reassembles, like it kind of reforms, regenerates. It brings itself together again over and over. I don't want to say that it's infinite regen, but I feel like as long as Kid is conscious inside of the suit of armor, then yeah, he's kind of like Buggy. And it's not that his ability can't be cut, because it can. It just doesn't matter, because the metal keeps reassembling over and over again. Also, everybody who got struck by the lightning last week seems to be doing fine in this chapter. Mom comes in there with a Hahaba, and this is an attack that she had used back in Whole Cake Island against the Straw Hats, against the Sunny, except back then Jinbei tried to block it with armament haki. So yeah, this is Jinbei trying to block the attack that we see in this chapter, and this is Jinbei being flown out of the Sunny because of it. Granted, he was still alright afterwards. He still came back afterwards. After that, Law comes in there with a counter shock, and I'm not really sure why he didn't go for the Gamma Knife. Because we've actually seen Counter Shock before. He actually used it in Punk Hazard to defeat one of the Yeti Cool brothers. But then he used it against Virgo, and Virgo completely tanked it. So if Virgo was able to tank Counter Shock, you can only imagine what Counter Shock would end up doing to Big Mom. Not a whole lot, right? Kaido gets back up, and he creates not one, not two, but three twisters. And the wind is strong enough to take Luffy off from Zoro and send him flying directly into Kaido's mouth. So Kaido just chomps down on Luffy, tries to eat him. Santoryu. Kokujo Tatsumaki! And not only does the attack counter Kaido's 3 tornadoes, but it also opens up a cut on Kaido's body, and it makes Kaido bleed out of the mouth, completely freeing Luffy. Now this is the same attack that we saw was capable of cutting through iron shells as if they were fruit back in Fishman Island. And so if we connect that to what we saw Luffy do in the beginning of the chapter, I think it's interesting that Oda's sort of making this proposal of, in order to be able to deal some serious damage to Kaido, you first have to be able to damage iron. And even then, that's still not a guarantee, because if you look at the slash that Zoro makes in that panel, the slash actually follows the same direction as Enma. So to me, I'm assuming that the panel is implying that the only sword that was capable of making that cut was in fact Enma. And so I feel like the ultimate lesson here is that in order to be able to inflict some serious damage to Kaido, you not only need to be able to damage steel casually, but you also need to apply a serious amount of Ryo onto your attack. So the amount of Ryo that it takes to damage Kaido is enough to drain Luffy out of Gear Force, and it's also the amount of Ryo that Enma absorbs from its user. Because when Zoro is charging up his attack, you see the dragon silhouette over his swords, which by the way is very fitting because in the newest SBS, Oda revealed what Devil Fruit power he would give to the Straw Hats that don't have a Devil Fruit power. And I think he said that he would give Frankie Baby Five's Devil Fruit power, with the weapons. I think he said that he would give Nami Enel's fruit, the lightning. I think he said that he would give Usopp the pocket no Mi, I guess infinite amount of pockets so that he could keep his tools and ammo there. He said that he would give Sanji the Swim fruit, so Senor Pink's fruit. And then he also said that he would like it if one of Zoro's swords had Kaido's fruit. So you see the dragon aura surrounding Zoro's swords in that panel as he's charging up his twister. But if you look closely in that panel, you'll see that out of the 3 swords, Enma is the only one that is surrounded by this dark flame. And then after he gets cut, Kaido says, "Oh, that hurts. Oh, I see. That's Odin's sword." So I think that pretty much confirms that the only sword that was able to leave a wound, that was able to open a cut on Kaido is in fact Enma. Kaido also says, is that katana the source of that strange haki? But it's a question, it's not a statement, right? He's not saying as a matter of fact, he's kind of wondering if that's the case. And I think ultimately it just goes back to what Kawamatsu said about samurai leaving a bit of their spirit in their swords. So if you remember 2 chapters ago, Kaido said that he was surprised that Luffy could fight him because there's only been a limited amount of people that could actually fight him, and one of them was Odin. So thus far, whenever Kaido gets significantly injured, Kaido makes the connection towards Odin. He made the connection with the Scabbards too, when the Scabbards, came in there and started the raid and were able to pierce his skin. He's like, why are these swords hurting me? Are they using Odin's Ryo? Even though technically, the Scabbards, they each have their own haki, they each have their own Ryo. He made the connection with Odin. Now, is the sword using Odin's haki to hurt Kaido? No. I don't think so. I don't think that makes any sense, because if the sword was self-sustained with Odin's haki that he left there, 20 years ago or whatever, then the sword wouldn't need to drain the user's haki. If Enma had Odin's haki inside, why does it drain Zoro's haki away from him? That makes no sense. Also, Ryuma at one point was known as the world's greatest swordsman. So if that's the case, if that's how swords work, then Shusui should technically have the haki of the person who was once the world's greatest swordsman in it. So Zoro should have been able to spam Ryuma's haki ever since Thriller Bark. So Enma uses Zoro's haki, it just channels it and funnels it through Oden's will. It's kind of like the same thing like Kuina, right? Kuina's will is in Wado Ichimonji, but Zoro uses his haki when he fights with Wado Ichimonji. The swords have goals in them, right? Kuina's goal was to become the world's greatest swordsman. So that's the sword that Zoro will be taking to the end of the line, to the end of his journey, for him to become the world's greatest swordsman. Oden's goal was to defeat Kaido to be able to open up the borders of Wano. So is Enma using Oden's haki right now? No, it's using Zoro's. Does it boost Zoro's attack power for the time being? Absolutely, yes. I'll go back to Kawamatsu's quote. Look at this. Right now, the balance, the relationship between Zoro's three swords is uneven. So ultimately, ideally, what we would want is for Zoro to be able to cut Kaido, not just with Enma, but with Sandai Kitetsu and with Wado Ichimonji as well. Once Zoro masters Enma and he uses it the same way that Oden used it, that's when the balance will be complete, and that's when Zoro will be able to reopen Kaido's scar. Except instead of leaving like an X, he'll leave like 3 lines instead of just 2. So just like Enma is giving Zoro a boost right now, in the future, Zoro should find a way to boost up his other 2 swords so that all 3 are on equal footing when it comes to his attacks. Kaido gets angry and he coils himself up like a snake and starts releasing even more wind slashes onto the Supernova. Kid gets hit, like his armor gets shredded. Doesn't matter. Again, he'll just reform. Law is just teleporting himself to avoid getting hit by the slashes. And I think this will be made a lot more clear in the anime. But I am kind of curious, can Law now teleport freely throughout his room, or does he still need to be able to switch things in and out? Because last week, I even went back and checked, when he switched Zoro up, when he got him up there to be able to launch his attack on Kaido, there wasn't anything in the air that Law could use to switch Zoro into that position. Unless Law threw a rock up there and then switched Zoro for the rock, I just didn't see anything there. And in this chapter, when he's dodging the slashes, he's teleporting pretty fast. You have to be able to move really fast to be able to dodge those slices. So it's kind of like, is he actually switching himself for an object in that panel as well? Or has his mastery over his room gotten so good to the point where he can now teleport freely? Again, I think the anime will make it a lot more clear. Zoro just kind of takes Luffy and runs, and then Killer pushes back on the slashes with his spinning punishers, bzzz. Again, there's no way those blades are normal, because Kaido's wind sights at one point were able to cut, actually broke Okiku's sword. So if Killer's punishers are able to push on these things, then those are some high quality blades. Since it's been a while since we've been downstairs, I feel like this chapter was full of little reminders from Oda for the casual reader. It's kind of like him whispering, hey, remember these things that I set up because I'm going to do something with them very soon. So the first of these things is Orochi's head, obviously, sort of a reminder of his quote-unquote death. Will he come back? We get a shot of the Oniwa Banshu fighting downstairs as well. We know that Fukurokuju made a very suspicious exit. We still haven't heard from him. We get a shot of Beppo and Law's crew, and we know that Beppo still has to go Sulong form. Another reminder is the shamisen player with the eye symbol on her head. We've actually seen characters that have this symbol all throughout Onigashima. They're all over the place. So we still need to figure out what the eye symbol means. I keep saying that everybody who has the eye symbol is part of the Three-Eyed Tribe, but we've seen these characters all over the place, not just with Who's Who. I know the shamisen player kind of looks like Bao Huan, but it's not. I did the comparison. Bao Huan has a tail because she's a flying squirrel smile user. Also, Bao Huan has horns, and her hair is completely different. So it's definitely not her, but it's a good reminder that these characters are out there. And then we got CP-0 here, which I definitely did not expect them to be here, at least not this early. Like, I thought they were going to come in by the end. Now, since they're here, I think it's important to make a note that since CP-0 works on behalf of the world government, the truth is that CP-0 doesn't want Wano to open up its borders either. Now, initially, the reason for that was the factories in Wano, because CP-0 was buying weapons from Wano, produced in Wano, and they were using those weapons to fight pirates. So if Wano opened up its borders to the rest of the world, then other people, more people, would be able to purchase those weapons as well, including more and more pirates. However, there's a deeper reason for why the world government doesn't want Wano to open up its borders back up again, and that's because it's connected to the Void Century. According to Oden, the reason for why Wano closed its borders up in the first place was because it was trying to protect itself from an enemy. In chapter 972, Oden calls the enemy a great external power. And so this is why CP-0 is here, to keep tabs on the situation just in case Kaido falls, which, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that he will. It could very well be that after the Void Century, the Kozuki clan made a deal with the world government of no intervention, where maybe the world government found out that the Kozuki clan was the one responsible for creating the poneglyphs, and they were like, you know, that's not cool. Like, that is not cool. So we're going to make you a deal. You lock yourself up. You isolate your country from the rest of the world. You don't interfere with outside affairs, and we'll just let you be you. So long as you don't open up your borders and you don't talk to people about the poneglyphs, like you don't start telling people what the poneglyphs say, what they represent, all that stuff, we will grant you this status as this autonomous country outside of the jurisdiction of the world government. However, if we find out that you're opening up the borders, that you're talking to other people about the poneglyphs, and thinking about revealing the truth about us to other people, then we have to intervene. I feel like something like that must have gone down, because that's why CP-0 is there, to see how the match ends. And so I feel like maybe the world government, long ago, they must have told the people in charge of the Kozuki clan, like, if you start thinking about becoming an open country, then we're probably going to have to use the ancient weapon that we have at our disposal to destroy you. They got the Go board there, representing the remaining forces. 5 white, 27 black. Each piece is worth 1k. And I don't know if the calculations include the people that are going to change sides after being hit by Queen's Ice Oni bullets. I would assume some Beast Pirates are having second thoughts after being aided by Marco and Chopper. And so just to give you like a brief rundown on the numbers, initially the alliance was 4,000 strong. But then after Uran was freed, the Yakuza bosses were able to get 200 more, for a total of 4,200. But then on the day of the invasion, Denjiro showed up with 1,200 more, for a total of 5,400. But now we know the alliance is down 400 members, which is kind of funny because 5,000 men is actually the ideal number that Kinemon mentioned in the beginning of the arc. So that's kind of the number that they were aiming for anyway. It also gets me to think that on average, each member of the alliance is worth 7.5 members on Kaido's side. Because if you multiply 7.5 times 400, that'll give you the 3,000 men that Kaido has lost on his side. But that's just kind of like an inaccurate calculation anyway, because CP-0 also says that each of the executives are at least worth 100 members of the alliance, or that they could take out 100 members easily. Then CP-0 says that if by chance the 2 Yonko fall, there will be no predicting the disorder of the world, meaning that like there'll be no balance, right? No balance of power, because historically that's what the Yonko do. Well, the Yonko, the Marines, and the Shichibukai, but like the Yonko are like the 4 powers that maintain balance in the New World. And this is the first time where I've actually had to really think about the possibility of Big Mom being defeated in this arc. Like, I actually have never thought about it up until this point. Because Oda actually has these guys say, oh, it won't happen. The 2 Yonko won't fall. But that kind of makes me think that maybe they will, or that they could, because Oda's telling us, don't think that. So again, the scene comes across as this very strong reminder from Oda for the casual reader. Kind of like him saying, oh, remember, it's not just the two Yonko up on the roof. We still have to deal with the executives, with the calamities, plus the Toby Robo. I think last time we saw Frankie versus Sasaki, Frankie was actually in General Frankie. And so it's hard to tell whether or not Frankie is out of Shogun mode or if we're actually zooming in inside of the control room of General Frankie. And that's the panel that we're getting here. Then we have this shot of Usopp, Tama, and Nami. And remember, Tama, like, she said that she had a plan, that she had like a strategy. So now it seems like they're executing whatever Tama's plan is to be able to deal with Ulti in page 1. Sanji doesn't fight women, and so I feel like that's why he looks as alarmed as he does in that panel, because last time we saw him, he was up against Black Maria and her group. So even though technically Sanji has fallen into a situation that he could deal with by himself, his code doesn't really allow him to deal with it. And so I'm just kind of waiting for Robin to show up. Jinbei should be fighting Who's Who, and then judging from the background of Yamato's panel, it still looks like they're in the same room, in the storage room that we saw, because you can see like the scales of the dragon statue that Ace burned. However, it does seem like somebody's at the door. Like, it seems like somebody discovered where they were. And so Yamato seems to be sort of getting ready. We go back to the roof and we get a shot of 3 doors. And the first thing that crossed my mind was, is this Oda showing us the emergency exit for the Supernova? It's like he shows us this escape route, and in the same page we have Kaido going hybrid. What am I supposed to think about that? Because Luffy needs time to regain his haki. It'd be kind of cool if they try to run through them and then Jack just comes out of there, you know, fully recuperated, just ready for battle. Hybrid form Jack. But yeah, Oda's silhouette fetish is back, because that's all we see of Kaido. We can see that he's bigger than Mom. Significantly bigger, actually, because Big Mom is actually floating on Zeus, while I'm assuming that Kaido is actually touching the floor. So he's bigger, which we've actually seen. That's what hybrid form does. Like, if you look at Jabra, for example, in his hybrid form, just look how big he was. Or Kaku. Look how big he was in his hybrid form. His skin is covered in scales, so we can definitely expect hybrid form Kaido to still be blue. And we see some of his dragon spikes on the back of his head. His neck seems to have stretched out from his human form, so his neck should be a little bit longer, and the distance between his head and his arms is longer than what it is in his human form. So he's keeping a lot of his dragon form features. What hybrid form does is that it adds up your highest stats. So it takes your highest stats from your animal form and adds them up to your highest stats in your human form. So with that in mind, Kaido's speed is going to be disgusting. Luffy, using Future Sight, wasn't able to fully dodge Kaido's human form Thunder Bagua. Hybrid form Kaido is going to be faster than that. And I also expect Kaido to be able to use all of the elemental attacks, all of the elements that he was using in his dragon form in hybrid form, being able to incorporate the elements into his hybrid form attacks. Also, I remember when Yamato took out one of the numbers, I think it was number 8, and the way she took him out was by sending out this arrow of haki out of her club. I totally expect Kaido to be able to do the same thing. This long-range haki attack that he can shoot right out of his weapon. I like how everybody's like, oh, Kaido went hybrid form! And Big Mom is just on the side there, laughing, kind of like it's not a big deal. Like, it makes me think that she's seen this form before. She's just chilling, like, mama, just like the good old days, Kaido boy. And at first I was thinking that maybe it was a little bit too early for Kaido to go hybrid form. But then I thought about it and I remembered that, like, even if the Supernova managed to, you know, deal some serious damage to Kaido in hybrid form, like, even if they actually, like, take him down once, he still should have awakening. And so hybrid form Kaido should be able to get back up over and over again. I feel like everybody from the Toby Robo up should be an awakened Zoan. And I feel like that's why Oda decided to show Ulti in page 1 getting damaged before their fight against Nami and Usopp. Like page one, like, you know, he fought Sanji, and then like Luffy also got a couple of hits on page one, and then Luffy also was fighting Ulti, and then Yamato came in there and also dealt some damage to Ulti. So if they've already gotten damage, if Ulti and page one have already gotten damage, then their defeat against Nami and Usopp is, I think, more believable. I think the 5 supernovas are going to get wrecked by Hybrid Form Kaido, and I think after they get wrecked, that's when the curtain closes and we stop, we go out to the world, get some updates from the situation back at the Reverie, from Sabo, from Vivi. So I think the end of Act 3 is very, very close, and then we go back, come back to Wano for Act 4, and that's when the comeback of the supernova begins. But I do think that this has to be the moment in the arc where everything seems hopeless. Like, we have to up the stakes. We have to make sure that this is not an easy win for the Alliance. Tragedy is about to start. So let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I thought this chapter was really good. Half of it was set up. The other half was sort of like this reminder of the ongoing events on the island. Let me know, do you think that we're going to see Hybrid Form Kaido's design next chapter? Or do you think that Oda's going to do the same thing that he did with the Minks, with Nekomamushi and Inuarashi, where like we saw this silhouette of Nekomamushi smiling, right, under the light of the full moon, and then it took a couple of chapters before we actually saw their full Sulong form. So let me know if you think Oda's going to do that, or if you think we're going to get Hybrid Form Kaido right away. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Take care, have a good one, good Super Bowl Sunday, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.